I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, has the healthcare crunch made you disregard some minor health issues?
Yeah, I do find myself disregarding small things and taking it into my own hands.
I'm a big advocate of our healthcare system.
Yeah, I would be unlikely to go if it wasn't an emergency.
How much of my own time am I going to invest in waiting?
But first, every year roughly 250,000 Canadians experience homelessness in every town and city in the country. We all know Canada has harsh winters, and they can prove to be extremely deadly for those who don't have proper food and shelter. So we talked to Canadians about what ideas they may have to help those who need it the most. Our question:
what could be done to improve poverty and homelessness on our streets?
I think that creating more jobs and creating more awareness on drugs and drug abuse, because I feel like drug abuse is the main factor that causes financial instability, which eventually leads to homelessness. So I feel like awareness on drug abuse, substances, and less use of it would reduce homelessness eventually in Calgary, Canada.
I think there's a lot that could be done. There are so many buildings that are just sitting empty right now in downtown, and those can be taken in and turned into subsidized housing. They could be turned into public service buildings. They could be turned into different shelters or organizations to help people get food, resources, and all that kind of stuff.
Some people are here chronically because they have mental health issues and there's no solution to that. Some people are here just because life has thrown them a really ugly curve and they kind of can't get out of it. And so I don't think there is such a thing as a simple single solution. There's not. You've got to figure out why people are on the street and then figure out how can we get them off. And if you're throwing government money at it, then do the stuff that's the easiest and cheapest first. And the harder stuff you will eventually get to, but it'll take time.
I don't know. I think more people to be aware of what homelessness and poverty looks like. There's people who have full-time jobs and they're living on the streets. So I think more programs for people who are in those situations, and more compassion and more education around what that looks like.
Well, I think it's a matter of trying to set up some provincial and federal programs so that we're looking after those that can't unfortunately look after themselves at that moment. We seem to be fixated on the rich getting richer, and I think we need to pay close attention to the degradation of our society right now.
Currently, funny you ask us, we're Regina, our Silver Sage Housing Corporation. So biggest thing is more resources, especially rehab centers, stuff like that, actual programs where people can, more shelters definitely, but more program resources for people, just so that they're able to get the help that they need is the biggest thing I would say.
More shelters for people. More, because now we're using hotels for people who don't have and that's really expensive to put people in a hotel for a few nights. So if we had more shelters and we had more housing that we could get people into quickly, then we'd be better off that way. But unfortunately, we do have a housing crisis as well.
I think something like a universal basic income of some kind could go a long way. I know that folks need supports. It's not a deficiency in the person. Folks just need supports, and they need supports everywhere. This is a worldwide issue. This isn't a local thing. This isn't, the people around here are no good, or the people over there are, need to do something. Folks just need supports, and so taking care of basic needs so folks can be safe, I think can help people get back on their feet.
I won't mention a party here, but the tendency to continue to decrease taxes makes it very difficult to help poverty in this country. I think there needs to be more of a strategy that could be developed by a coalition kind of talk as to how we can solve these problems, how we can help the poor and bring them out of poverty.
I think it has to be recognized as everyone's issue, as opposed to just people that may not have what others have. So I think the ability to think outside the box, to share Having been in Europe, we were in Ireland recently, even having public bathrooms that were accessible and clean in a non-judgmental way is one thing that we could do.
There needs to be a change, that's for sure. We need more housing, affordable housing, and I think our government could probably do a lot better in that respect to make housing more affordable for everyone and get people like the mental help that they need too, because lots of the time people in poverty, that's how they end up in poverty, right? So I think mental health supports are really important as well.
Oh, that's a good question. My gosh. I think having a drop-in center is always something that's really nice, so that people can find a place temporarily to come in to feel comfortable and then try to solve the longer-term problem for homelessness.
Well, I think a basic living wage would be a really good start to improve, living standards for people in Canada. I mean, it's been tried a couple of times in pilot project kind of thing, and every one of them has worked. So I think that would be a really good place to start.
I think funding for, again, building a social fabric as social safety nets that sort of get to the root cause of the issue. I think personally, I see a lot of times in North American government where we're perhaps treating symptoms instead of treating the root cause of these issues. You see other countries in, say, Europe or the Scandinavian countries where they have a much more diverse series of programs. Again, obviously that results in higher taxation and things like that, but I think that's money well invested instead of just money spent.
Many of us are aware of the long wait times in store for us when we visit a hospital ER. Depending on your medical situation, that wait could be quite lengthy, as many people may have priority over you. Unfortunately, this issue is becoming the norm in Canada, and people seeking medical attention may forego seeing a doctor or nurse just to avoid sitting in a waiting room for 12 hours or even more. So, are you one of those people? Our question.
Has the healthcare crunch in Canada made you more likely to disregard some minor health issues?
No, not at all. All right, I'm a big advocate of our healthcare system. It's been great for my family and I. Again, I think I might be. I'm not sure if I'm in the minority or majority, but in terms of where we are in Canada, I'm a big fan, and I can't say anything bad about it.
Very much so.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's hit both of us, absolutely.
So I know we don't do a lot of things and go to, it takes 2 weeks to get into a doctor, so sometimes the issue that you have is just, it's gone by then or it's not important anymore. So.
Yeah, and that's happened to us recently, so
yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, yeah, like for me, getting into my family doctor, you always have to plan 2 weeks in advance. So if you're actually sick, by the time you go see the doctor, you're not able to show them the symptoms, get the medical need you can get, or you have to go into a walk-in. On a walk-in, you're sitting there for a couple hours at a time, and if you're in pain, you don't want to do it. So yeah, you need a little bit more support there, I guess.
Well, even if you have a family doctor, it's like even just trying to get an appointment with them, like with my family doctor, it's like a month ahead of time. So it's like I need to know a month ahead of time if I'm going to have an issue that I need to go to my doctor for. And then ERs too, like if you have something urgent, I think a lot of people are like, okay, you know what, like weigh the odds, like can I handle this at home? Because I don't really want to wait, or I can't take the time off work to go to the ER for 14 hours.
I'm more on the other side of things where it's good that I'm not running to the emergency room for a hangnail kind of thing. It's a little more clear on where I should be going and what I should be using the healthcare system for, not just abuse the healthcare system kind of thing.
I think that we need a lot of work in proactive medicine and care, right? I'm glad that we're healthy and we're young, but I do fear, if I do have to use our medical system, what the experience is going to be like. So I think being more proactive is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, I do find myself disregarding small things and taking it into my own hands, because I know that the process to go and see a walk-in, I don't have a family doctor, the process to go see a walk-in or go see somebody can be a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like it takes a few levels for me to actually get to talk to the doctor. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a business. And so Yeah, it's not because it's not for any reason other than I consider myself competent and healthy enough overall that I can ignore certain things.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, probably if it was something small, I would just either take it upon myself or I guess wait it out and see how it goes from there. But yeah, I suppose.
I live in Melfort, and there are a lot of family doctors there. Nobody's taking new patients, and I went to the ER for a sore throat, and I was there for 5 hours, and I couldn't even get antibiotics, so I just went home.
I am very privileged to have private medical insurance, and I live in another country, which is where that private medical insurance is obligatory. And the healthcare is much more responsive there, so I feel comfortable going to a doctor there. And when I compare it to the Canadian system, I feel less inclined to go to the doctor here because I know there's a big demand for doctors and maybe there's somebody else who needs it more than me. So I'll kind of let things pass for myself in comparison for others that I think need more than me. But also I know there's big waiting lines, especially since COVID.
I don't think so because, our system here has worked for a very long time, and I think it could work better than it is now. So I'm not going to turn away from it just because I think it can't provide for my needs.
They say healthcare is free. We just spend 5 hours of our lives that we're not getting back. So it's not exactly free. And yeah, if it's a minor issue, then it's like, how much of my own time am I going to invest in waiting?
I've now lived in 4 provinces as an adult, so I've seen the healthcare system in 4 different provinces, and I'd say even though I lived in Newfoundland, which is by far the poorest province, but they spend a lot of money on healthcare, I would, my health is number one. I'm a mom, I'm a caregiver. I have to take care of my health and I have to take care of my family's health, and I'm an advocate for my own health too. So it might be a bit tougher to get things done, but you have to advocate for yourself even if it's a tough environment.
Yes, absolutely. I don't go anymore. I lost my doctor because he retired, couldn't find a new one. And where I live in Comox on Vancouver Island. You're waiting 2 to 3 hours sometimes just to see somebody. You can get there first thing in the morning at 7:30, wait half an hour, find out they're already full. You just don't do it. You just ignore it.
Probably, yeah. I think there's a real health crisis going on, and if you don't have a family doctor, it's really, really tricky. And going to the emergency room is not ideal, and those doctors and nurses are doing everything they can and they're working their butts off, and there's just not a lot of support for them, I find. And so yeah, I think it's just easier to neglect some health issues than try and get in and see a doctor right now.
In what year was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police originally formed? 1867, 1873, or 1910? 1867, 1873, or 1910?
1910.
1910. I'd say 1867. I feel like they've been around since the dawn of the nation.
1873.
I'll go with 67.
I would say 1867.
I'm going to go with 1873.
You're absolutely correct.
Yes! Because I'm from Regina.
Canada's National Police Service dates back to 1873 with the creation of the Northwest Mounted Police. During that time period, the Northwest Territories did not have provincial status and had to rely on the federal government for policing. In 1904, they became known as the Royal Northwest Mounted Police until 1920, when they became officially known as the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Their image is synonymous around the world with being a Canadian institution. Today, the RCMP continue to protect and serve Canadians with over 700 detachments in 150 communities across Canada, along with policing services in over 600 Indigenous communities.
Voter turnout in Canada for provincial and federal elections in recent years is not what you would consider strong. Actually, the lowest voter turnout in Canadian history for a federal election was back in 2008, when 58.8% of eligible voters in Canada showed up at the polls. So when it comes to Canadian politics, what would it take to make you more engaged? Our question.
What would make you more interested in Canadian politics?
Some new leaders would be good, I think, of every party. That would pique my interest a bit more, to be honest. But
I can't be more interested in Canadian politics than I am now, because I am currently in this particular province having issues with the current majority government, and I've always been involved in Canadian politics, both in this province and in other provinces I've lived in, and certainly in federal politics.
I think integrity, honesty, making sure that it's real for people.
That's a tough one. I don't know how to answer that. My boyfriend and I are very two different people in the views of politics, and I just think people need to be better. Like, I just don't think we have really any good options right now. So I don't know. Just as a young person, it's hard to, get behind lots of the things that are happening in politics.
I've actually become more interested in politics the older I get. I used to just ignore all of that kind of stuff, but I've realized that it impacts my life. So I actually have been getting more interested in politics lately. So,
well, I think it would be helpful if the parties would present a vision of what they see the country, where they want to take the country. So presenting visions and then sticking to that and not waiting for the latest poll to come out and then developing a platform at that point. And if they would work together and talk to each other, that would be very helpful too. Like, forget the politics, let's just talk and try and solve problems.
That's a good question. I feel like if they advertised it more in school and talked about it more, then I feel like that could interest more kids about it and stuff. So I feel like if they advertised it in school or just online more, I feel like it'd be better. And, just better for people.
Yeah, same thing with what he said. They need to make it be more reachable towards young people because they're the next voters. And if they don't do that, then nobody would want to vote because why should I vote? Is it really going to make a difference? I'm one person.
I don't know. I feel like currently there's not a big appeal to the younger generation. Like myself, I'm able to vote in the next election, and I feel as of right now, I don't really have a lot of information as to who to vote for. So the problem sort of becomes it's who my friends are voting for, and I'm not able to make a choice about what I want to do. So I think a big change, if I really wanted to get into it, would just be to appeal to the younger generation, because that makes up a huge part of it, right?
I guess more forums, like more open forums in where I live, because sometimes just watching TV doesn't do it for me. I want to be able to hear them speak more, like more one-on-one. I'd like to have that more where I live. I think that would be something I'd like.
I think I would be more interested if we did like the long form of politics as opposed to the TikTok of politics. I follow all of the major politicians to just see what they say and what they put out there. And I think that if someone was actually able to answer a question and have like an elaborate answer as to why they think something as opposed to just a punch in the face, I'd be much more interested in watching and listening and being involved.
I'm already pretty interested in Canadian politics, to be honest. I think what would make me a little bit more interested it's just to like maybe be able to feel like I could see my impact. Sometimes I feel like it's really hard. Like we place a vote and you can really feel like your vote doesn't matter. If I could I don't know how they would do this, but if they could find a way to make me feel like what I'm doing is actually affecting my community, that would make me feel more involved.
Well, I think there's a lot going on right now, and I don't think that it takes much more to get interested in the way things are going in Parliament, with all the debates, the very heated debates. I think they're quite entertaining. So I don't think there needs to be much more that should get people interested into politics. But I mean, good leadership looks boring, right? So I mean, we hope that we can get good leadership so that people just go back to their regular lives.
Just knowing where to find the party platforms and having a very clear, this is what we want to do, this is what we're going to do to try to accomplish that, instead it just kind of gets lost in sensationalized news articles.
Well, if they quit fighting and came forward with some decent policies that would help the country rather than just arguing with each other.
So the negative discourse turns people away?
Turns me off.
Turns me off too.
Yeah. No, I'd like to see, well, first of all, I'd I'd rather see the Conservatives in power, but Pierre Poilievre's not coming up with any good solutions either. He's just tax the tax. Well, that's pretty silly. I mean, they can do that, but then what's he going to do? So everybody needs a platform and a policy to run on, and some way of making the country better for the future rather than just fighting at the moment. So
Canada is a large country. We're the second biggest country in the world. And with that comes a diversity and natural beauty that expands as far as the eye can see. Once again, we sent our cameras out across this great land to ask people why the town they live in or the place they originally come from is so distinctive. Our question:
what makes your part of the country unique?
The Rocky Mountains are spectacular. If you've ever been to Banff, you hear languages from around the world who come here, literally from around the world to visit this beautiful place. It's an awesome city.
Well, I live in Calgary, and I think Calgary is a really interesting spot. I think a lot of Canadians look at Calgary and just think cowboys and white folks and conservatives, but there's actually quite much multicultural, and I think that for as many of those folks there's lots of progressive people, and I think there's lots of really, really smart people in Calgary. There's so many engineers and doctors and dentists and scientists and artists, and so that's why I really like Calgary.
No, what I love country music. So for me, it's definitely about going to the Stampede. I love cattle. I like anything to do with 4-H. So for me, Calgary's great.
I get the big city feel, but also the community of a small town. I like Calgary. It's a big city. It's not as big as Toronto or Vancouver, but I do feel like there's a little bit more connection here. I can still feel like I can smile at somebody on the street and they'll smile back to me. A little bit more of that small town feel.
Diversity. Yeah, I have never seen such diversity in any other country. I visited Canada. In 2019, I came to Canada at the end of 2019, and I was amazed to see people from all over the world here. I have never seen this kind of diversity in any other country.
The winter. 30 below, bright blue sky, snow on the ground sparkling, hoarfrost. It's fabulous.
We like it here.
This is home.
Yeah.
Because I've grown up in Saskatchewan, born and raised here. So I know something that binds all Canadians, is our love for Canada, but something I think specifically about Saskatchewan is our geographic isolation that really gives you a sense of community, right? You might have to drive a couple hours from town to town often, but despite that distance, we're still quite a close-knit community. I think regardless of what people's political affiliations are, at the end of the day, we can see past that often, or I hope we can. And there's a good sense of being neighbors here. I think that really makes Saskatchewan unique.
We have a lot of wind here, as you can tell today. I think our Saskatchewan is known to be very friendly. People who visit often, that's kind of the first thing they say is everyone here is very friendly, very helpful. I work at the hotel part-time around here, and we get lots of business clientele and lots of people who travel lots, and that's always the first thing they say is everyone around here is very helpful, very friendly. They're willing to lend a hand. So that would be it.
I just feel like I feel like it's very open to everyone. I feel like a lot of people come from different places. It's just like a home for everybody. So I feel like it's just a very welcoming. Canada's a very welcoming place.
Yeah, same here. It's a very welcoming place, and I feel like it's giving opportunities to anyone who has the will and skill to be able to accomplish standards.
My part of the country, well, here on the prairies, you can watch your dog run away for 2 weeks. We have here a strong community. I'm in Winnipeg. We have a strong community. We have a number of strong communities. So really large populations of diverse folks. And I know that's a similar story in all sorts of city centers, but I think there's a certain kind of folks that find themselves in the prairies. And you tend to need a local to unlock things for you. But once you're in, people really fall in love with it. And so, yeah, I'm a proud Winnipegger.
I'd honestly say it's the people. I really like it here. People say that, Manitoba is it's a very dangerous place, but I actually think it's the contrary. Everybody here is very welcoming. very diverse. You can find French people and English people. Being a Frenchman myself, it's a very fun time.
The extreme climate.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so it's how we can go from -30 to +30 in a couple months, kind of thing. So I'd say that part.
I would say the multiculturalism, especially in Winnipeg, and just the diversity that we have. People seem to gravitate to the heart of Canada, and we have a very small, unique history here.
I think it's just a beautiful place. We only moved here, a few years ago from Ontario, and it's just a beautiful country, province, and a city. We love Saskatoon. It's they call it the Paris of the Prairies for a good reason. It's just a very nice, walkable, friendly city.
Oh, the best. It's the best people. People who are willing to take time to help people out or push somebody out of a snowbank if they're stuck, or a lot of friendly people too, and approachable and polite. I love the people here, and I don't know, it's the most beautiful skies in the whole country in my opinion. I love the sunsets here, and I love this part of the world.
Yeah, we have lots of farming area out there, and it's beautiful country. Like, it's very small town feel for a city. We could have a few more amenities, but I mean, it's good. I grew up in Nipawin, Saskatchewan, so a really small town, and just community. It's a great community to live in. So.
Well, it's not unique. We share it with Manitoba and a bit with Alberta, but the prairies themselves, I think, are very great. I love the fact that Saskatchewan is mostly a very egalitarian place. There's not a lot of hierarchical structures here in terms of class and so on. So I really like that aspect of it. I like the egalitarian nature of Saskatchewan.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.